Welcome to the Radioday 2040 in Amsterdam. It will be for the 38 years in a row that we have this Radio Day with attendance from all over the world and a very good program because we are celebrating 50 years of offshore radio in Europe.
We've got one major topic, which is 50 years of British radio, when British radio set sail, and we've got visitors from all over the world, from Canada, from Mexico, from the United States of America, from England, Scotland, Ireland, France, Belgium, Sweden.
Years ago I write you and you
It will become a huge event with celebrities like Tony Meehan, Brian Vaughan, Pete Bowman, Ben Healy, Ferry Mart, Hans ten Hofe, Mark van Amstel, Peter Damare, Arnold Lane, Robbie, Graham Gill, Peter Chicago, Michael Lindsay, Roger Kent, Paul May, Roger Twiggy Day, John Ross Barnard.
That's Jan. King Kong is one of the crew members. He was on Caroline South, London, and then with us at R9. He must be 80 now. Very, very strong. Lovely. There's Nico.
Nico Steenbergen, ja.
Dave Rogers. Mark Stern.
Jullie is hier van dan.
Roger Day.
Ja.
There's Tony. This was the Mi Amigo after they brought it out of harbour. I was with Pete and we were trying to put the project together. That's the Mi Amigo. We had a title on the show. It's Mike Ahern and DLT's cabin.
Oh yeah, we got last day.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Radio Day 2014. Although, looking around this room, I could be convinced that it's 1964 again. Suddenly I feel 50 years younger. And I hope at the end of the day you will also feel 50 years younger. I am Tony Curry, I am your host from the coast for today's event. Don't blame me for that phrase, which I believe was nicked from Radio City. It was either the invention of Hans or Martin. So I would like, without further ado, to introduce you to the organisers of what promises to be a wonderful day, Hans Knott and Martin van der Ven.
Welcome to Radio Day 2040, which seems to become the biggest ever. But before we open this very special event, we have to talk for some minutes about our very close friend Rob Althoff, who passed away after a friendship lasting for almost 5 decades. On Monday, 23rd of September, Rob died peacefully in a hospice in Wilnis at the age of 67. Rob, I will never forget this enormously long and warm friendship which we had shared during more than 48 years.
Rob, you will always be in our mind. May you rest in peace. We say thank you very much in the name of all radio friends in the Netherlands and from abroad. May we ask you, the audience, to stand up and to give Rob a big applause for his tireless efforts to keep the radio memories alive. Thank you.
We begin today with a video documentary made by Wayne Hepler, who is Associate Professor of Mass Communications at Hartford Community College which is near Bel Air in Maryland in the USA.
I will be brief, which I'm sure you will appreciate. You will actually be watching about 34.5 minutes of a documentary that runs quite a bit longer than that, just in appreciation of the amount of time we have this morning. So here's my brief story, and the rest of it we can cover later. 1989, the great professor, Dr. Drew McDaniel at Ohio University, mentioned the so-called pirates of Holland, or the Netherlands, and in essence said to me, the crooks have taken over the show. Now, I realize since then there are no crooks, and I realize you hadn't taken over anything, but you had at least made a very important point.
And from that came the idea to start for yourself. If you like pop music, you should start your own transmission.
Of course, along came the pirates, and well, they weren't actually that good. They were so different. People just couldn't believe this, and in a matter of months, everybody wanted, all the kids wanted to live a different sort of life.
This year, on March 22nd in Casa 400 Hotel, Amsterdam, the Radio Day celebrates that it's 50 years ago when British radio set sail. With the Pirate Radio documentary by Wayne Hepler.
Okay, look alive, you're in Radio Scotland generation.
Radio Scotland 242 and Radio North Sea International. You can relive the adventures of the Dutch crew with, amongst others, Nicholas Steenbergen, Ferry Mart and Hans ten Hoger. And of course, the English service, chaired by Robbie Owen and Larry Tremaine. Britain Radio, Radio 355 and Radio City. Caroline in the 70s will be in the spotlight with Andy Archer and other DJs. And of course, Caroline in the 60s with Robbie Dale, Keith Skews, Johnny Walker and Tony Prince. And as an extra, Radio Extra Gold will be broadcasting live from the event.
The go-go sound of Extra Gold.
Be there Saturday, March 22nd, Hotel Casa 400, Amsterdam, www.radioday.nl.
Avoidance of doubt, we're not going to talk about swinging Radio England, we're going to talk about Radio Scotland. Thanks Tony for that intro. My name's Ian Bigger, as Tony mentioned.
So with intent in starting a commercial radio station to serve the people of Scotland, his search for a ship began in the middle of 1965. He commissioned a chap called Harry Spencer, who had been involved in Caroline before that and also did some work later on for 270. And he found the former Irish lightship, the Comet, which was actually built on the Clyde in 1904. So the Comet was found, and it was fitted out for broadcasting purposes, and eventually arrived off the coast on New Year's Eve, 1965, just in time. Pete, do you remember your first view of the Comet on New Year's Eve?
Yeah, and I wanted to turn straight back again, and I must admit it was an old lightship with no engine. It was in a filthy condition. And I don't even swim. So the first glimpse of it was how tiny, so small. So I looked at the radio huge, Radio Caroline, Radio London, whatever. They seemed enormous to me. So that was my first impression.
Just come back to the initial broadcast. So Pete, New Year's Eve, you saw the Comet, you got on board. What did you do then?
You know, I can't remember. This is 48 years ago.
Big yourself,
We found the accommodation, what Brian said, absolutely true. We could not believe it. We thought we were going to have all our cabins separate, and it was all going to be wonderful. You know, but it wasn't anything like that at all.
Eventually, it did manage on the air with the initial broadcast. And if we could listen to track number 2, please. We can hear some of those.
From 2.2 meters in your medium weight band, this is Radio Scotland. A very happy New Year to you. Wherever you are in Britain, and to all our friends who are in Canada, just join us.
Max. Je ziet een hoop bekenden, denk ik, tot slot eventjes hier op zo'n Radioday. Niet alleen zeg maar fans van toen, zoals die taxichauffeur, maar ook veel, denk ik, oud-collega's.
Ja, ik verheug me erop om Robbie Day weer eens even tegen te komen, want die ken ik uit helemaal mijn hele oude discotheekperiode.
Vertel.
Ja, ik ben begonnen in Loosdrecht, de jachthaven van Dijk. Op de zondagmiddag, nou, dat was altijd waanzinnig druk, 600, 700 man binnen. En op een zondagmiddag kwam er in één keer iemand nerveus naar me toe. Die zei van, er zijn Caroline discjockeys hier. Ik zei, oh? Dus een grote Rolls Royce voor de deur. En, dus op een gegeven moment, toen kwam dus Robbie Dale naar me toe. En die zei, I want to have that record. Ik zei, have that record? Ik had net Tom Northcott gedraaid met 1941. Nummer van Nielsen. En dat vond hij geweldig. Hij zei, die plaat wil ik hebben. Ik zei, die krijg je niet, want dat is die plaat die draai ik hier, weet je, vind ik een fantastische plaat. Nee, ik moet hem hebben. En als ik weer van boord kom, dan heb ik een stapeltje nieuwe platen voor je maken. Ik zei, nou oké, dat is weer. En dat heeft hij inderdaad gedaan. En een aantal weken later kwam hij er langs. En ja, dit is een leuke samenwerking geworden. Ik heb ook nog platen met hem opgenomen. Dus hij als producer, die wel Robbie Day.
Ja, en uiteindelijk was Robbie Day volgens mij toch ook verantwoordelijk ervoor dat jullie bij Radio Noordzee uiteindelijk die vrije jingles kregen van Green Sound.
Ja, dat is waar. Die had hij op een gegeven moment bij de BBC gehad. Die had hij eerder dan de BBC. Ze moesten nog afgeleverd worden. En ze werden ondertussen al verbouwd bij Noordzee, begrepen.
Ja, die demo-pakketje. En ook die weggezongen.
Ik heb dat later wel allemaal pas begrepen, want wij deden we jatten alles wat we maar jatten konden natuurlijk. Dus,
zo zijn er hier, alleen ik doe het tegenwoordig legaal, hè? Klinkt bekend, maar dan... Mag ik je vriendelijk danken voor het prettige interviewtje? Ja, we zijn er weer zo. Ik spreek met de agent van Queen Sound in Europa. Ja, dat is een andere vraag. Zometeen de Ohio Players, dank je.
And the Dutch service began on the 6th of March 1971. Our next panel concentrates on the Dutch service and is introduced by the moderator, former RNI DJ, Nico Steenbergen.
Right, we just heard, you might say, one of the most silly singular tunes ever on radio, that's what I think. Man of Action by Les Reed. What did we thought of it? We had to play this almost every hour. Ferry, you're the most music man among us. What do you think?
I think it's, you recognize it directly when you hear it. It's got this R&I sound, and if you like it or not, as a DJ, we had to play it so much. And on the ship it was only played when there was something wrong, when the tapes didn't arrive, and or there was another dangerous situation. So.
After all, it's the thing that remains, the sound of that thing, combined with the feeling of the seas and the smell of the galley back there when the cook was preparing dinner. So, Man of Action is part of our radio lives. You cannot deny that.
Did we have any idea about what the sound of a young Europe would sound like? Mark?
Yeah, we were young. Wij waren heel jong. Read the subtitles. What was your question again?
The question was that we announced ourselves as the sound of a young Europe.
But we were young, 19, 22 years, 24 years. And we were the biggest station in the Netherlands at that time.
Radio Noordzee, international station!
Main diesel on the Caroline album, there's the main diesel on as well to supplement the engine. that's a great model. It just brings back such good memories. The transmitters are kept there because it has to be cargo. That's why they put them in holes. So they're not, strictly speaking, a broadcasting ship. It's all very technical. And you go down the steep stairs, you've got the two 10 kilowatts and the 50 kilowatt right along here, stretching along there. Oh yeah. That's where the 50 was. Our captain was an amazing young man. He could stand here, be a clear day, clear blue sky, clear sea, and he'd say, yeah, back down the hatches. And within half an hour, the sea was rising. He could read the weather. We'd go all along, tie down all, tie down, who have I killed? What you doing now? Man overboard. Man overboard, man overboard.
How many people do you see in colour during the radio day?
The best one was 1,000 people at the 555 club in Calais with Tom Anderson, all the Caroline people at the time.
Ja hoor, en zeker op zo'n dag als vandaag, 50 jaar Radio Caroline, 40 jaar geleden Noordzee gestopt. En het is leuk om al die fans van toen nog weer eens bij elkaar te zien. En ze komen allemaal en van heel ver weg dit jaar. Het is ongelooflijk hoeveel mensen er hier zijn. Ja, in 1971 kwam Radio Noordzee opnieuw in de lucht. En dit keer met een Nederlandstalig programma. En ik ben met Ferry de Groot naar Hilversum gegaan en gevraagd of ze werk hadden aan boord. En hij zei, nou nee, we hebben geen programma's, maar we hebben wel nieuwslezers nodig. Kan je dat? En ik heb ja gezegd, mocht een krantenartikeltje omschrijven voor gesproken tekst. En hij vond dat goed en zag er wel in. En een maand later zat ik aan boord.
My claim to fame is simply that I'm a dyed-in-the-wool RNI Anaraka. I was mid-teens when this station was on the air, and I followed every bombing, every anchor chain break, and all the comings and goings. Even the name changes for Arnold Lane were of great interest to me every day. So, of course, we all know what these people used to sound like, and guess what? They still sound the same. Unfortunately, they don't quite look the same as And so, starting on my left, please introduce yourselves.
My name is Michael Lindsay, and I was on RNI for about 3 months.
And next to Michael is?
Yes, well, I'm Peter Chicago. Thank you very much for the applause. Radio North Sea was my first experience of offshore radio, and I joined it soon after it started broadcasting, and on and off I sort of continued both up until the close down when it first came on the air, and then I made a brief reappearance on the station when it came back on the air later.
And next to Peter?
Yes, my name is Roger Kent. In fact, you might remember the captain mentioned cornflakes. That was me, I'm afraid.
And you had your own request down?
Yes, I had the Roger Kent hit back out from memory, a long time ago. I was on the station from February '74 right through to close down, and had the honour to be the first English DJ to do the English close down show.
Okay, Roger. Thank you. And another Roger.
I suppose I have to say hi, hello, how are you? This is the thinner record spinner, Roger Twiggy Day. I tell you what, hang on a minute, the Dutch gin is weaker than it used to be.
Of course.
Bloody awful, there's nothing in it.
Keep you sober for this session at least. And next to Roger Day, we find...
I am Bernard Hartwig, and I work for the RNI World Service on the program which was hosted by AJ Barron.
Hello, Peter Hartwig. Bill Collins.
That's right. My name is Peter Hartwig. Well, we did this program together, my brother Werner and I, mainly from home. We had a small studio, very tiny studio, becoming bigger and bigger each year, and some month ago we had to break it up because we had to sell the house.
And hiding on the end behind.
Hiding on the end.
Hello.
Is someone who was a dreadful, appalling broadcaster when I joined Radio North Sea because I only had club experience.
And your name is?
Dave Gregory.
Dave Gregory. Well done, I want to bring Peter Chicago in here, and Peter, this station was incredibly well fitted out and equipped.
But when you were living on the ship, you noticed the problems which, there was a big circular wash bowl in the washroom. Lots of taps around it, big centerpiece.
Yeah, it looked wonderful.
Looked wonderful in the photographs. But when you turned the tap on, the water would splash straight out of the bowl, all over your trousers at a very embarrassing point, usually. The showers were at the end of the washroom, and just with hanging curtains. And again, it left a nice wide open space. But in rough weather, when the ship would really move a lot, and you were covered in soap, and usually soap in the eyes, you could be thrown all the way out of the shower and all the way across the washroom. And about half the way across the room, there was a tap jutting out of the wall. And on one occasion, not only was I thrown right out of the shower, but I impaled myself on the tap and used some very descriptive language to sum up my thoughts.
I might be on later, but can I just say thank you very much to a lot of people in this room who still support me after all these years. You don't know how much I appreciate the support you've given me during troubled times, and I thank you very much for that, so thanks very much.
It all happens through summer '71 in swinging Europe. Love a go-go. Join us and be a part of Go Go Europe. This is Summertime RNI.
Summer of '71 was, I mean, it seemed to be a special time on the station.
It was a heavy summer in the 70s.
It was good. That was terrific. We all worked hard on the station. Radio will never be the same again. And it is such a shame because it was a great thing. But I think with what we did at RNI, you never got the feedback because you were at sea for 3.5 weeks or whatever it was. But the thing was, if you listen to the internet now, most of the internet stations are trying to reproduce what we did in the late 70s or the middle 70s. Well, that was terrific.
The chairman of the board of the Happiness Corporation.
And was it the start of your professional radio career? Or?
No, that was early in 1966 because I'd worked under another name, Roger Scott, on Radio Essex, Radio 270, Radio 390, and for a short time on Caroline North, just before Caroline North closed for the last time.
So you have seen some ships and some forts.
Ah, absolutely right. Yeah.
Every time I see you, you seem to have a different badge with a different name.
Hallmark of quality, Britain radio. With music for this, that, and the other.
Okay, on my right, Phil, Martin. Martin, Phil, what are you going to say? You've got 20 seconds in which to say it.
Phil Martin, yes, that's me. What I'm going to say is that I think we were the beginning of the end. We heard this morning how the murder of Reg Calvert was the trigger that hardened the hearts of the British government anyway and determined them to bring in the Marine Offences Bill.
Right, let's see if Mark Sloan can do in 20 seconds exactly what it is we want him to. Cue, Mark.
Thank you, John. Lovely to see you all here. Radio 355 was a real treasure trove. Beautiful music, wonderful music, great disc jockeys, a lot of fun, properly managed and properly run, and I look forward to telling you a few stories in a minute.
Cue, John.
Right, I'm John Aston, as you've probably got insight into that announcement. I'll be telling you one or two stories about what it was like on the ship, one or two things that were in the press that were quite amusing to read after the event. It was a great place to be, and I thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it.
Tony, me, and Q.
I lasted 2 weeks. I got fired, and I was very happy.
Graham Gill, Q.
Radio
355, I can't remember if I was there or not. I was on Britain Radio, you know, hallmark of quality, Britain Radio. I was there, but I probably was on Radio 355 at the time, and if I was, I did enjoy it very much.
Hallmark of quality, Britain Radio. Wonderful music.
Yeah, I know, you should have married me rather than him.
That's why I was rich man by her belt. Which one do you reckon? Cheers. Thanks for answering. Okay.
Paul Alexander, you had some run-ins with Tony, I'm sure.
I've had 1 or 2 run-ins with Tony. I actually slept with Tony on the HS station. We slept on a bench, we were waiting for the cafe to open. Is this working?
It's nice that you're so open about your sexuality, Paul.
Tony and I were on our way back from some restaurant one evening. We couldn't get in. We couldn't remember the way to. Caroline had a flat at the Waldorfslaan, and we couldn't remember how to get there. And if we did, we didn't know which window you had to climb in. And so we ended up spending the night on the railway station, the HS station. But Tony really explored your head, and he would completely psychoanalyze you in 5 minutes, and then spend 2 hours trying to teach you the wrongs of whatever you were doing. And I arrived at Caroline as a young 18-year-old club disc jockey, armed only with a ticket to go and send Morse code from ships. And I think Tony, Mr. Houlihan, Jimmy Houlihan, who was Ronan's right-hand man and minder, Lord Archer and Dick Palmer, they straightened me out, and they're responsible for. I've had a fabulous life ever since.
I've never been accused of straightening anybody out.
Well, you certainly did, and my eternal thanks. Listen, Andy has actually worked in the 60s, 70s and the 80s in radio, as well as the 90s and other BBC philanderings since. And there aren't many jocks that have done that. I think Roger is probably the only one. So I think Lord Archer deserves a big round of ammunition as well.
Mickey was a wonderful cook. He used to, the Dutch crew tended to like pork chops and potatoes and whatever, and we preferred a little more exotic food, and Mickey certainly gave us exotic food, Johnny, with a special ingredient.
That's not true.
Oh, yeah, this is Tern Visser. Tern was our chief engineer on board the ship.
One of the memories I know about Mickey was actually he was not only excellent for the breakfast, lunch and dinner, but also something after the coffee, and that was a kind of dessert. Yeah, and he was really a specialist with cakes and whatever. One of the memories I know that we were sitting all together in the mess room, and we were enjoying, of course, all the cakes from the Mickey. And then he was asking also Captain, and that was Mr. Jaap Taal, a real fishing man. Captain, you want to have also a piece of cake? He said, yes, of course. So we give him a quite big piece, and he starts smiling and smiling and more and more. So after a while, after the second round of coffee, Captain, you want another piece? Oh, yes. Well, finally we have to carry him real stumped back to his cabin.
But we forget also, and actually this is where I actually wanted to sit behind here. I didn't really want to talk about everything in the past. But what I think is the most beautiful thing out of my Caroline experience is that it was not only it was not about money at all. And also Radio Caroline, before we became Caroline again with me and Miko, it was Radio Seagull. And Radio Seagull was in a few months' time named by a survey of the Sunday Times as the best radio station of Europe, and that was also due because of a bunch of American freaks that came on board bringing the most amazing records. Although everybody was laughing at Ronan and thinking, he was kind of crazy, it did carry some magic around, because if you think the chances that was taken and the dangerous things that were done by mi amigo, and we had no contact on board, like nowadays everybody is in tweet and talking and calling. We had no contact with the ship. There were people on board there in a 4-scale 9 anchor chain broke. Then somebody from the home office called us saying, "I'm Mr. A, let me warn you, your anchor chain has broken. You have to get the ship out, otherwise we have to confiscate it," in the middle of the night. And then we got it together. So it was a lot of magic, and I think that loving awareness did carry something, and I'm very grateful. Ronan O'Reilly was a really good guy, he still is, and he did help a lot of people. It was not only about money.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth. On 963 kilohertz medium wave, Europe's voice of loving awareness is Radio Caroline.
With love, peace, and good music, this is Caroline 319.
It's that time! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Radio Show.
Goedenavond, dames en heren, meisjes en jongens, allemaal op de Nederlandse gaat we nu vanavond een andere maandag met veel meer music. Music explosion.
And I joined Veronica 1 month later. So that was it. I was out of a job, and Jan van Veen gave me a job. I met him in the American Hotel in Amsterdam, and he offered me a job. And then I went down to meet the Vervey brothers, and we got on very well. We had a good relationship.
What was the biggest difference between Caroline and Veronica at that moment?
Oh, heavens above, that really was very different, because the Veronica studios were all being technician operated, and the disc jockeys just sat inside and talked on the microphone. And then, so when I came along, I wasn't used to that at all. Dat was heel raar voor mij. So ik heb self-operating geïntroduceerd aan Veronica.
We were lucky because it so happened that it was coming up to New Year, and we got the opportunity to leave because the local harbour master there, where we were moored, asked me when we were leaving, and I said, well, I don't know whether we can leave. And he said, yes, as far as I'm concerned, you can leave. So we ordered a tugboat, and we were towed to the lock gates in Rijnmouwen, by which time, unfortunately, the news got out on the radio, and the crew got their lawyers, and they came and had the ship stopped in Rijnmouwen. At the last minute, we almost made it out to the sea, and then there was a very tense situation for several hours, and somebody arrived with a suitcase full of money to pay off the crew.
Serving the British Isles, 14 swinging hours a day, this is 199 Radio Caroline.
But on Easter Sunday 1964, Ronan O'Reilly broke that monopoly with the launch of Radio Caroline. And to guide you through the 60s, your moderator is former Caroline DJ, Ray Clark. Tony?
My goodness, what a load of talent. Who goes on breakfast? That would be a battle to watch, wouldn't it? Who are we going to put on breakfast? I'm honoured, I'm sure everybody else is here, at the attendance of these guys. And yes, you will get the recognition that you so richly deserve throughout this chat and at the end of it as well. Keith, I guess you and perhaps Norman St. John about the same time. I think Keith might have the edge on it.
I joined in microphone
DJ.
Not used to speaking without a mic.
Hi, you're on.
There's an on switch and an off switch. I never knew that. That's what made. Do you know I've been broadcasting for 50 bloody years and I forgot to turn the microphone on. Anyway, Ray, talking about whatever you were, I get. You see, when you get to my age, you need to write down the ad libs. You see.
You need to write down the questions.
Oh, that was it, yes, you see, they even got that wrong. So the question, reading the question back was, you know, I did Norman St. John. He came after me. I know that because we used to do those naughty tricks in what was called initiation ceremonies. But by the by, I went out with a disc jockey. He was an up-and-coming guy. I've got his name written down here somewhere. Tony Blackburn. So I joined a similar time that Mr. Blackburn joined Caroline, which would be shortly after the merger with Atlanta and Caroline. And Norman came later, and what we had to go through in those days, they tested us. The following shift, or the shift after that, along came a new boy. Of course, I won my spurs now, I was okay. Right, let's do an initiation test. We'll put him out onto lifeboat drill. So we went to the captain and said, Captain, sorry to trouble you, we want to do lifeboat drill tonight. He said, oh no, don't launch the lifeboat, for goodness sake. You know, we're going to have a lot of aggro. So Norman came out, and I'm very tired. I've come across from, was it Radio somewhere? Radio City or Australia, one of the three. I'm very tired, I want to go to bed. So off he went to bed. He'd been briefed by the captain what to do, what not to do. He'd been told all about lifeboat drill. So off he went to bed. And about 4 hours later, the engineer who doesn't want his name mentioned, George Saunders, S-A-U-N-D-E-R-S, was given the task of knocking on the cabin door with Norman and saying, lifeboat drill, get on, you know, put your jacket on and everything, you're going to be up there on the top deck, manning the lifeboat. And then he saw me and I said, well, just hold the wheel, hold it really, really hard. He was in his pajamas, it was freezing cold, and it must have frozen his nudges off.
It did.
So you take out the rest of the story, Norman.
Yeah, well, the rest of the story is not real good. However, after 45 minutes, I realised that we were either going to die from the ship sinking, or I'd die of the cold. So I decided to let go of this wheel that I was hanging on like very tight for, and I went downstairs, and there they all are in the mess, drinking Heineken beer and laughing. And so that was my initiation to Radio Caroline. I've got to tell you one thing. Keith Hughes has been very popular in the radio business because he never could turn the microphone on.
New kid in town from Swing Radio England, and he's here at this station he's always wanted to go to. So, did he ever stick to the rules? Did you ever use the playlist? Did you bed yourself in and then thought, right, let's attack?
Well, I used to either play the awful records that they pay to play, either at the beginning of the hour or at the end. And there was one when a famous rock and roll manager guy, whose name escapes me for the minute, but Roger will prompt me. Sharon's dad.
Don Arden.
Thank you very much, Don Arden. He made a record called Sunrise Sunset, and it was the biggest load of dirt you've ever heard in your life. So I put it off and put it off, and finally about 5 to 11, the end of the hours, so it was supposed to go out, I put it on and I said, God, I said, you wouldn't want this played at your funeral, this is bad. So then I stuck it on, I said, let's speed it up a bit. It was very slow. Sunrise Sunset. So I stuck it on 78. Sunrise Sunset, it was a bit of an improvement, and then we tried it at 33, and basically I trashed it. Unbeknown to me, Don Arden was having a party at his house, called all his friends round, giving them all champagne, said, my record's going to be on the radio. About 10:30, they're saying, John, we haven't heard your record yet. They said it'll be on soon. And then finally it gets played. In not quite the way that he intended. So then he got on to Phil Solomon saying, get that Johnny Walker off the ship. And they rung every guy with a boat on the coast could go out and get me off the ship. Unfortunately, they're all in the pub and too pissed to worry about going out.
And Robbie, you're the guy that had to water this down. You went to act as the go-between between land and stuff on the ship.
Yes, well, that was about the 15th time that Johnny had been fired. I mean,
the thing was, after that midnight announcement that we were going to keep going, and we had a couple of journalists in the cabin and the last legal boat, and they were taking photographs and stuff, and Robbie and I were singing We Shall Overcome, we played All You Need Is Love. Go to bed, and then in the morning I wake up, I thought, it's bound to be the Royal Navy, we're going to be surrounded, but we'd taken off and clamped in irons, and woke up, went out on deck, not a bloody sardine, absolutely not. And then I heard this little voice shouting, hello, hello, and we look over the side, and there's this tiny inflatable some guy had got in Clacton. He was on a fishing holiday and he choked out with his tiny, and he goes, do you want anything from the shops?
Just show our appreciation for these guys, because without these guys we wouldn't be here today.
The reason why we kept going is because of you, the people who were listening in. And there was such enthusiasm for their listeners, they were so supportive. We know the radio station meant such a great deal to people. So for all of us to come back here on the 50th anniversary is quite an emotional and profound experience. And it's great to be here. Thank you all very much for coming.
Hartelijk welkom, bienvenido, bienvenue. Welcome to the Radioday 2014 in Amsterdam. And the Raddies, the Radioday Awards.
John Aston, John Stewart, Christopher.
And the one person behind all this is the lovely, brilliant Mary Payne. We are proud to celebrate the absolutely biggest radio day ever.
After all those years, we cannot ignore the fact that we were all growing older. Citing Walt Disney, always leave them wanting more. Martin and I have decided that this will be the very last radio day which is organized by the two of us. But the radio day will be getting another view by two new people, Jan van Heeren and Jan Vos, who will go on, and more about that in the international report during the year.